Hey everyone, welcome back. As some of you may have noticed, I took a break last week. I'm back now, and I am a day late. This has been a crazy week, and I'll get into why. But first, thank you all for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm gonna remember to tell you that right off the bat, so I don't forget at the end of the video, like I usually do. At least the last couple of videos. Anyway. A lot of crazy shit has been happening the last couple of weeks. Things in the news, things in my own life, just crazy stuff. I mean, life is good. Let me just get that off the bat. Things happen. You're not guaranteed an easy ride or a smooth ride, and not everything that you're going to do is going to work out 100% the way that you thought it would, and that's okay. Let me just put that out there. It's okay if, you plan for something and something completely different than you expected ends up being your life. There's a saying in German and Yiddish, man plans and God laughs. It's a Jewish saying, and I have liked that saying since I was 18 years old, because we have all these plans for the future, and God's just looking down at us going, oh, you think so? Oh, is that what you think it's going to be like? And it's never like that. And that's okay. I think the worst thing that you could be is rigid and not be able to roll with the tide. And I have to admit, I am not really somebody who can roll with the tide that easily, but in my life, I've gone through a lot of changes, and there are so many things that have happened since I was a little kid up until this point, and not all of it went exactly the way that I expected it to. And every time I had an idea of what I thought I wanted, I'd get it. And it just turned out that that wasn't at all what I wanted. And then I would swear things off, and I'd say, nope, I would definitely never do this, or I would never want this, or I would never date this type of person. And then you just end up doing that. And it ends up being a good fit. So I really don't know where I'm going with this. But I am saying, just for all of you out there, just try to remember that, life is going to happen. Try not to fight it so much. Try and go with it and see where it leads. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be upset. That when things change or things end or people die or things happen, that you shouldn't mourn it. That you shouldn't feel anything about it. But, and this might seem much easier said than done, try to remember that things get better. This has been a hard few months. It's been a big transitional change, that I had all my goals accomplished and achieved in my life, and everything I had set out to do I had done, and I was now living the dream. And then things just drastically changed, and things are in a different direction. And I have to admit, I'm still somewhat in a bit of a purgatory. I'm not entirely sure where life is headed, but I have some ideas, and it's getting a little bit easier to have something to look forward to. So for that, I would just say, keep that in mind, that what you might think is a change that you may be hesitant to, consider that maybe it might work out better than you think. Don't just say, no, that's not me, that's not going to work. When people make suggestions, when friends make suggestions or family makes suggestions, don't say, no, I don't think that's going to work, that's not really me. Don't be such a rigid baby. Try something new. I think I'll leave that particular topic right there. Something for you to stew over. Yeah. That I had wanted to talk about, without giving away too much information. There's this local gang of kids, this aimless group of kids that have been hanging around my town lately, and they've been attacking other kids around their age. I mean, this group, spans the ages of, I think, 13 and go up to maybe 19, potentially. I don't know if there's any younger, and I don't know if there's any older, but I've heard as young as 13 and as old as 19, and most of them sort of in between, high school aged kids who are recording themselves attacking, beating other teens, and then posting it to Snapchat and posting it to Instagram. And I know this because this affected my life directly, and I won't say how, but somebody that I know and love was followed and attacked and punched repeatedly by a couple of twerps while their gang had the camera rolling the entire time. And they were, it was clear based on the video, and I've seen the video, that they start recording before anything even happens, before there's a confrontation and before there's even a fight, because it's something they're knowing they're going to do. And what was fascinating to me was these young girls, it's girls and guys, but particularly these girls who did the attacking, they know exactly what they're doing. They're putting their hair in a ponytail as they're walking, they're putting their hoods up, they're getting prepared, and then you hear somebody yell puncher, and then these pieces of human feces begin to punch this other child, and it was so startling. And then to find out that it goes around Snapchat, it goes around on Instagram. When this was brought to light, a lot more parents started to step up and say, this happened to my child too. They taped it. They taped my child getting attacked. My child didn't go back to school for the remainder of the school year, and this is more than one person. How vile is that? And then I come to find out that these two little, again, this human debris that are the ones that seem to be the most popular instigators in this gang. They're these troubled girls, trailer park trash. I've heard rumors that they've actually punched their own mother in the face. They've never met a consequence. And then, you sit back and you wonder to yourself when you hear something like this, that they also have a fight club, an actual fight club where they beat themselves or they beat others, and they put this online. There's a depraved indifference. Now, I don't mean to generalize an entire generation, but everything is social media. Everything is looking at your phones. There's no humanization. There's no personalization. And yes, I understand that they're all spending time together in person doing this group activity, this very wholesome group activity. But what has happened to, in just the span of just one generation, where there's no respect for authority. There's no appreciation or regard for human life. It's almost like, because they're not fearful of any kind of repercussions or punishment, they don't have to worry that anything will happen to them, and it's like it's not real for them. And it just makes me so concerned, because we all look at these, we look online, we read comments, we see these keyboard warriors, we see things that sort of help us to dehumanize others online. And again, that's not to say that this is, broader or truer of this whole generation, but, and I don't mean to say that, similarly to the 90s where they were Puritans saying that, these violent video games are making people violent, because I don't think that's true. But I do think that, you find the right audience, or certain things, they find the right audience, and you just trigger the wrong person with the wrong circumstances, and it's the makings of a very bad situation. And that's just so upsetting to me that, a bunch of kids, I remember being 16 years old, and of course I was angry at the world, but I also knew how to laugh and have a good time. And I just can't imagine ever putting my hands on anyone. But I do remember being, on the streets of Brooklyn, hanging out with my friends. I remember being jumped. I remember being jumped by these horrible people, and I remember they pulled out a chunk of my hair, and that chunk of hair has never grown back. It's right in the back of my head right here. I'm touching it right now. It's bald. It's covered by a few hairs, and I remember how painful it was, and I remember seeing my hair on the floor. You don't recover from that. I'm just very disturbed by, some of the things that are happening in this generation, and how easy it is to share this kind of depraved indifference with others across the internet. And then there's this whole market for it. And what's fascinating to me is how, you can believe a certain thing, you can say a certain thing that's essentially benign, and you can be banned from Instagram, from Twitter, from Facebook, for being, for hate speech, for, violating terms of service. But kids are putting up videos of themselves beating other children who didn't ask for this. These aren't kids who said, yeah, like, I'll fight you and we'll put it on video and this isn't, there is no permission given. We talk about a society where cyberbullying is evil and bullies are bad. And then you have social media specifically not seeing these as a violation of terms of service. And I'm just baffled by it. And it's so disgusting and it's so evil. And these parents, where are these parents? What are they doing? Why don't they love their children enough to just lay down the gauntlet? How could you be so afraid of your children that you're not willing to be the bad guy? If you're not willing to be the bad guy and be the villain, you've lost your children. You've lost their respect. You've lost them completely, because children, like it or not, want rules, boundaries, and they want to be yelled at and they want to be punished. And that's just the way it is. They're scared as they're navigating the world, especially as they're teenagers and they're getting older and they're not sure exactly what's next, and they need somebody to put them in their place so they can feel a little bit of security and kind of give them a boundary so they can step back and not grow up so quickly. If you're not doing that, you are a shitty parent. And not every kid who goes bad had a shitty parent. Some kids just go bad because. But if you are a parent that isn't comfortable with discipline, then good luck to you, because someone else is going to discipline your kids for you. And it might be the cops, or it might be someone bigger than your kid, and they mess with the wrong person on the wrong day, and your kid either ends up very badly injured or dead. So if you don't want your kid very badly injured or dead, do your job. Know where they are at all times. Be hard on them. Tell them that you love them and you're keeping them safe, and protect them from themselves, because kids are like little savage animals in the wild. And they need protection from themselves. Not everybody should be a parent. And if you can't do the job, give your kid to someone who can, because you're not enough. You're not enough. That's just my thoughts on that. Tell me what you think. The next thing I want to talk about is something that's been in the news for a while, Britney Spears. Britney Spears has been in the media again. She's been in the news. I see the hashtag Free Britney everywhere. I'm seeing everyone from leftists and conservatives and hyper Britney fans. And I know that this is going to catch me a lot of flack, because what I'm about to say is extremely controversial. But I don't necessarily agree with the Free Britney movement. And I understand sometimes some of the things that have been written and some of her statements have been very concerning. She has said that she has an IUD she's not allowed to remove. She's not allowed to get married. She's not allowed to start a family. She's not allowed to use her finances freely. She's not allowed to, essentially be a free, independent, free-range adult. And this has caused quite the stir. Everybody has turned on her father. I think his name is Jamie Spears. And he's been essentially in charge of her finances, and he's been her conservator now since 2008. When she had her mental breakdown. She shaved her head and she was exhibiting all of this very strange behavior. And she lost custody of her children to her ex-husband. And when Kevin Federline is the picture of good parenting by comparison, something's very wrong, because Kevin Federline is kind of a douchebag and not an upstanding guy, and he's never really made his own money. He makes Britney Spears' money because he gets some sort of alimony, I believe, and he's getting all this child support so he can support all of his other illegitimate children. But people have been taking advantage of Britney Spears since she was young, and this is why I'm vehemently against child stars and child performers, because they're essentially being prostituted in this industry that, by the way, preys on children. All of Hollywood is pedophilia. It's pedophiles and vile grown men and women who sexualize all these children and work them to death, and they don't give them a break from being this adult-looking star. They don't let them be children. And what's even, I wouldn't say what's worse, but what's on par with that's just as bad, is that these children never hear no, because they're the moneymaker. And when you are the breadwinner at 15, 16 years old, no one wants to say no, because you are so powerful at that point. You can just dismiss these people from your team. So I'm sure there have been good-intentioned adults around Britney Spears her whole life. that just wanted to be there for her and help her and say no. And I guarantee you that people on her team that wanted to see her succeed for their benefit probably eliminated them, just like people with Michael Jackson and Christina Aguilera and, all of these kids that are coming out having out of the woodwork now. We read stories about them being on drugs or dead or homeless or, just really mentally screwed up from their history in Hollywood, which, they're so powerful that we still haven't torn down Hollywood yet. We had a hashtag Me Too movement, which got a little bit out of control as far as I'm concerned, but we were finally getting there. We were finally unearthing the evil and saying enough is enough, and the sexual deviancy, is enough, but we never really truly got to the pedophile part. The closest we've gotten is outing Kevin Spacey. Which is a shame because he's an incredible actor. But it turns out he's been sexually abusing men for 25, 30 years. Maybe more. And Britney Spears is clearly a product of an upbringing that, sexualized her from a young age. I mean, remember her first video, her music video, Oops, I Did It Again, where she's in that slutty, cheerleader-looking costume. And this is what she's been since. And every story ever was about Britney Spears back in the day. Everybody wanted to know about her, and she was pretty. I never thought she was talented. I'm sorry. I thought she sang in baby voice, and she was hyper-synthesized, and she was an okay dancer. I just was never a fan. I always thought she was actually quite funny. I thought she had great comedic timing when she would, act. I thought she was okay. The point was that she had been worked to death by people who wanted to make money off of her. And I believe, and there's nothing that has confirmed this, so all of this is just conjecture, but on my part, but I believe she's bipolar, given her symptoms and the fact that she mentioned being on lithium, which treats bipolar for manic episodes. And I believe that just based on what I've seen. But there's a reason she's had a conservator this long, and there's a reason why it's lasted from 2007, 2008 until now. And there's a reason why she does not have custody of her children for the most part. I think she has very minimal custody. And if anything, I believe the custody of her children has actually been reduced over the last few years. So she went from having, I think, a close to a half and half situation with her ex-husband to having basically, very little custody of her children. And those children are getting older. So there's a reason why she is not allowed to have custody of her kids. And that doesn't just happen. No court wants to see families separated. So with this Free Britney movement, she's a slave, she's enslaved. Hang on there. Hold on for just a second. There are things we just don't know. We are not privy to her medical records. We're not privy to this information. And there's a reason why it's being kept private. She deserves her privacy. She deserves her medical privacy. And I appreciate that she is crying out to be let free. But I'm watching videos of her over the last year that she puts out these little clips of herself talking and dancing and weird, and she looks erratic. And I believe in 2020 she was hospitalized for her mental health. She's not a stable person. You see it in her face, you see it in her hair and her makeup. She doesn't look stable. And I'm not saying again, we don't know. And I think that's really the point, is this Free Britney thing. First and foremost, with a conservator, you're considered, incompetent to care for yourself. Therefore, it would not be unlikely or illogical that you would have some form of birth control. And I don't believe for a second that, they didn't just give her an option. Did you want the implant in the arm? Did you want the IUD? They probably reviewed the options and which ones were more likely for her to not have to worry about being responsible for, such as a pill. And as far as the IUD goes, I mean, she wants it out of her, but she wants to start a family. And I'm sorry, but at 40 years old, to not even have the insight to say, I don't even have custody of my own children. She definitely doesn't have any kind of sole custody. She does, her ex-husband does, and she thinks she's going to marry this guy and start a family. I'm not buying it. I'm just not buying it. Something just doesn't seem right. And that's not to say that there's not a chance that her father hasn't been abusive, that her father hasn't taken this, you know, too far, but a conservator does get paid. So it's not unlikely that he would get money for this. When she went on tour a few years ago, not on tour, she had a residency in Las Vegas. Maybe that was her opportunity to prove that she could handle working again. Maybe, you know, maybe that was the purpose. And maybe it didn't work out. And then I read something, I wasn't allowed to take off shows, to cancel shows. And this is supposed to be evidence of her being enslaved and being held. And I'm thinking, no. You are a performer getting paid, tens and sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars by a company, and you put on so many shows as part of your contract, and then you're off for several weeks. If you do cancel those shows, you're costing them a lot of money. And then you have a lot of angry people to answer to. If you're not able to fulfill those commitments, then you really shouldn't be doing it. It's exhausting. Of course it's exhausting. But as you're getting older, you can't do it as much. Understandable. Then don't do it. I'm just reading between the lines a little bit as someone in the medical field. I'm just saying that maybe it's something that, you might want to consider, that perhaps there are things that we just don't know about Britney that are serious and might shed some light as to why she is still under, this sort of level of guardianship. Is she taking her medication regularly? We don't know. Is she meeting the requirements she's supposed to be meeting? We don't know. But if there are things that she's supposed to be doing and she's not doing them and she's still unstable, then that's something we won't have a right to know. And this Free Britney movement, I just find it to be a little bit too sycophantic for me. And I would be for it, I think, a little bit more if it wasn't for this, hysterical Free Britney. You have to free her. She's a slave. It just seems to have gone so extreme to one side that it's not leaving room open for another side. So unpopular and unprofessional opinion, but actually quite professional. Maybe Britney isn't ready to be free. And I know that sounds terrible because I want everyone to be free, but some people need to be saved from themselves. And maybe she just needs to be saved from herself. Like maybe if it wasn't for having a conservator, she'd be dead. Maybe she would be destitute. And I've read comments of people say, oh, so what if she spends all her money? Well, you know what? She's got kids to support. And why should we let her free to just get bamboozled by this guy, this shady looking guy that she's dating? There are predators out there. And she will lose all that money, and unnecessarily. And forget the money for a second. Can she truly take care of herself? And honestly, the courts don't look at these things so lightly. They don't just grant them so lightly. I think I've seen plenty of people out there who have severe mental deficiencies, and maybe the big problem in this country with mental illness is that we don't have enough conservators. Maybe we don't have enough people watching over these people so that, they're required to take their medication and they're required to try to be upstanding members of society so they can function. Perhaps there are plenty more people in this country who could be saved from themselves instead of being, responsible for themselves. They don't take their meds. They end up homeless on the street. That's not humane. Maybe that's something that might need to be looked in more often. I don't know. You tell me what you think. I'm sure you're going to hate me for this. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who are going to think I'm crazy, but you know what? I just don't know if I'm sold yet on the Free Britney movement. Last thing I want to talk about is privilege. If you've made it this far, well, thank you for watching. Let's talk a little bit about privilege. This is a big woke term. Check your privilege. You're so privileged. I'm going to read you something that I was reading about on BuzzFeed.com. And something struck me while reading this. It's called 27 Things That Might Seem Normal to You, but are actually signs of privilege. And it's, the readers, they get to write in, they write their comments, and then they repost these comments as the top ones. So these are the top voted responses from users. Let's see. So this one kind of is the thing. This is the one that made the light bulb go off. This is number 5, spontaneity in your daily plans. If you're a wheelchair user, that's virtually impossible. So few places have accessible restrooms. Some public transport needs contact 24 hours in advance in order to accommodate you. I envy people who can just go with the flow. Okay, fine. And I'll tell you why in a moment. This sort of struck me. The ability to buy a drink or a snack in the spur of the moment without thinking about how it impact your ability to pay for your essentials, your utilities, etc. The ability to just eat whatever you want without having to read the label and make sure it doesn't have something that'll F you up. And so on. Being neurotypical, whatever that means. Having people assume you're telling the truth. I'm not excited. I have no idea what that. Libraries. I think a lot of people who have access to a public library don't appreciate how much of a privilege that is. Okay, maybe that's fair. And the list kind of goes on. Uninterrupted power supply. Having a garbage truck that picks up your trash and being able to flush toilet paper. Okay, so those are just a few. And apparently these are signs of privilege. And that just bugs me. And I'll tell you why that bugs me. In the grand scheme of things, especially if you live in the United States of America, no matter your color, your religion, your gender, your ethnicity, whatever, you are privileged just by being here. Okay? Privilege is something that you're not guaranteed that it's not coming to you. You may or may not have earned it. And that's fair. The problem here is how privilege is used in a way as sort of a step in for being like a blessing or for something to be grateful for. People who are religious tend to appreciate what they have, and they say, I am blessed. I'm blessed with this. I'm blessed with that. At night you go to bed and you talk to God and you say, thank you, God, for giving me legs that work, for giving me 2 parents who love me, for giving me my husband, my child, my family, this beautiful house. There's gratitude because there is recognition for those who are religious, and there are people who are not religious who have the same gratitude, that they understand not everybody has what I have, and I am so grateful to have all of these things. And they can be very random things that you can think about. On any given day, you could probably think of 10 new things you didn't even realize that you had to be grateful for, but you can be grateful for them. If you're starting to run out of things, if you really think about it long and hard, you can find something to be grateful for. In the woke religion, and it is a religion, it's got all kinds of doctrine and, confession and sins and original sins. Privilege is something to be mourned, and it's something to be regretful for. It's something you to be shamed over. All of it, this list was sort of like a giant list of, if you have this, there are people who don't have these things. Lucky you. It almost seems like a cynical, snarky thing. Why would you compile a list and then tell people that, you're privileged because of this, if not to shame them? And don't ever feel shame for having things and being, as long as you're grateful for them. We're not guaranteed our legs. We're not guaranteed our lives. We're not guaranteed tomorrow, today, 5 minutes from now. We're not guaranteed our spouses. We're not guaranteed a boyfriend or a girlfriend, a mother and a father. We're not guaranteed anything. Everything we have, we should be grateful for. But what we should never do is take those gifts that we're given, or what they would call privilege, and turn it into something to be sorry for. If you have all of your appendages, be grateful and never be sorry. If you have great friends and a partner in life, and nice children and great pets and a nice house, be grateful and don't ever be sorry. If you're not in a wheelchair, if you have electricity and it's uninterrupted, if you have running water and a garbage man, be grateful. But don't ever be sorry. And don't ever let anyone make you feel like there is something wrong with you and that you have done something to someone else, because that's really what these lists are about. They're about basically insinuating that by you having these things and other people not having them, that you have done something to them. It's that same argument as the 1%ers and the 99%, and the rich people have all this money and CEOs make all this money and the workers have this and the middle class have this. The rich guy didn't take money from you. That's not why they're rich. You aren't poor because someone else wronged you, and you're not legless because someone else has legs. And you are not without water because someone else has water. And I know this sounds like a really harsh thing to say, but someone's got to say it. If you know there are people that are going without, you should be giving to charity. And you should be looking to help others. I just think that as a general rule, human nature, we should be helping our neighbors. We should be caring when someone has less than. And if you're in a position to help, I really strongly believe you should help. But you should never be sorry for having what you have. For actually, when you have and you are plentiful, it gives you the option. It gives you I would say the blessing, it gives you the privilege of being able to be in a position to help others. So maybe we can rephrase this privilege thing as a good thing. Don't ever let anybody shame you into having, and don't ever let anyone call you privileged, because let's be honest, they mean privilege is a dirty word. Privilege isn't a dirty word. And every one of those assholes who put this stupid article together, those kids are privileged too. They're just as privileged. And there's no such thing as equity. I know that everybody wants equity nowadays, that equity is the big buzzword. We can't have equity, and we should never have equity. Equity means same outcome for all. A guaranteed outcome for all means everybody suffers equally, and we're all miserable together. How about some people do really well and then they help lift up others and empower others? And the only way we can do that is if we stop being jealous and greedy, because that's what this game is. It's about jealousy. It's about greed. It's about trying to take from others what they have and what they earn to benefit them, because they're only thinking about themselves. And we can do better than this. So make an example, give to charity, help others where you can, lift other people up, and don't ever listen to anyone who calls you privileged. Privilege is a dirty word. That's my final take on that. Welcome back. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for listening to this very long episode today. I wish you all a great weekend. See you next week. Bye.